The Chargers offense is going to look a lot different on Sunday without their lead running back, J.K. Dobbins, and now the best option will be to run this offense through their lightning rookie, Ladd McConkey.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers now together for 9 seasons, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you all for making us your first listen. We appreciate the everydayers out there, and to make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Well, Daniel, the former Georgia Bulldog will make his way back to the state of Georgia, and hopefully he is in for a big-time game performance. Ladd McConkey is going to be the fixture of the Chargers offense. That's who has to win in this game. On defense, the Chargers have to get after Kirk Cousins. He's one of the most immobile quarterbacks in the league. Destroy the statue for sure. And then we got to finish things up with our bold and game predictions.
Yeah, the Chargers need to get back on track in a big way in this game, at least according to FanDuel. Is going to be a close one, but today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Dave, it's time to get into our keys for success offensively, and both of us had the same feeling for this game, especially with the J.K. Dobbins news this week, and that is, okay, well, there's no reason for this offense now to not run through their best offensive skill position player, and their best offensive skill position player is Ladd McConkey. So with the questions at running back, and this will be a big game for Gus Edwards to step up, obviously, which we'll talk about, but there's no doubt about where it should start and what the game plan should be for this offense, and that is get the ball to Ladd McConkey as much as you possibly can.
I completely agree. I think now is the time to start, increasing the targets quite a bit. I mean, right now we're looking at he's had 6 targets in 4 of his last 5 games. I think we need to start elevating that up closer to some Keenan Allen type numbers, like 10, 12, 13, 14 targets. I want to see him to get a huge target share in this one. Honestly, I don't want them to stop going to Ladd McConkey until the Falcons can prove that they can stop him. And I think they're going to have a really, really hard time doing that because of the way that their defense is set up. They don't get a lot of pass rush over the quarterback, so Justin Herbert should have plenty of time to be able to sit back and dice up this secondary.
Yeah, it's a very big game for the Chargers offensive line, too, because if there was ever a game to kind of try to gain some confidence and get something rolling, it would be to go up against a team that has less sacks than they have games so far this season, averaging less than 1 sack per game. But you're right. I mean, I think the biggest reason why the Falcons are allowing quarterbacks to complete over 71% of their passes this season, and that's because they can't get any pass rush, which makes the secondary look worse, and it's very much a trickle effect. And with someone like Ladd McConkey, you can only cover him for so long. And it's nice to see him be more of a focal point, at least 50 yards in 5 straight games, 5+ catches in 5 of his last 6 games. But yeah, his season high of targets is 9. It is a fine line you want to go, right? Because he is a smaller player. He's done a much better job of getting down and not really putting himself in harm's way, so I'm not as worried about it. Ramp that thing up because, I mean, this is, a good matchup for him. We heard Aaron Freeman yesterday talking about, hey, D. Alford is on the injury report, but even when he has played, he hasn't been great so far this year. He's given up a completion percentage of 75% this year. So throw it Ladd McConkey's way, and good things are going to happen. And hey, if they shift all of the coverage to Ladd McConkey, that's just going to make everything easier for everyone else. So if you get him going early, that hopefully gives you some better matchups for the rest of your receiving core. But man, I mean, it's hard, and we've already seen it, right? Teams already know what the game plan is, and they're going to try to take away Ladd as much as they can. But David, with the running game and with the J.K. Dobbins news, there's no doubt that this game is kind of the platform for Gus Edwards to show why he was signed with the Chargers. And after last week, pretty uninspiring performance of 7 carries and 9 yards, they need him in a really good matchup to look better than that this week.
Yeah, and I think one of the themes that you guys you brought up in the crossover was just improving on that physicality and bringing that back into the game. I really, truly feel like Gus Edwards has to play a big part in bringing that physicality. Obviously, he's going to be the lead back out now with J.K. Dobbins missing this game on Sunday. he has only had one game this season with over 15 carries. I think the second game that happens in has to be this one on Sunday. And I'm not talking about just in the first half here. They need to stay consistent with the running game throughout the entire contest. I'm not trying to sit here looking at this box score after this game and seeing only 5 or 6 carries in the second half. That's unacceptable. I want to see something closer to 30, 35 carries in this game because, hey, the Falcons are 19th against the run in the league. They are, a team that can be ran on. They're not, they're not world beaters, honestly, against the run or the pass. Like there is definitely some opportunities to run the ball. You got to impose your will. You got to bring that physicality, that physical calling card that Jim Harbaugh wanted to bring to this organization. That needs to come back and manifest itself on Sunday.
Yeah, the weird thing about the Falcons, especially with their run defense, is at least this season, they haven't had a bunch of games where they've just given up, 175 yards plus. But in every single game this season, they've given up at least 96 rushing yards. If you're not hitting that as the Chargers offense, that's a failure on all in every degree. Like that's just it can't happen. They've given up 128 plus in more than half of their games, 6 out of 11 games this season. And it feels like some of the rushing game mantle will have to be taken up by Justin Herbert, especially, near the red zone. If you don't have J.K. Dobbins, you need a way to kind of get that first down, get into the end zone. Justin Herbert has to be able to help out this run game. And especially, I think, hey, if you do that kind of read option, you let him keep one, you let them think about it. I think that'll open up things for this Chargers offense. I will touch on one more I had here, which is just that the tight ends have to step up in this game. And I'm looking at more than just Will Dissly. And it's a little scary seeing Will Dissly because on the injury report, just because he has been their production at the tight end group. If you're looking at what the tight ends have done, it's all Will Dissly and then
everybody else.
I mean, it's like 95%. Like there's 7 Hayden Hurst catches, and Eric Tomlinson catch where he fumbled, and that's pretty much it. And
a couple of seam catches for Stone Smart, but it's been
but I mean, when's the last time we even saw Stone Smart make even now? He's been active the last couple of weeks because Hayden Hurst is now on injured reserve. But I would love to see him get involved. I would love to see him get some snaps out there. And if you want to still kind of have that Hayden Hurst role, I would love to see him out there, right? And I think if you're going to run all these heavy packages, it might be nice to have. Whatever you think of Stone Smart, he's definitely an above average athletic tight end that if you get him in space, he'll be able to do something with it. But I just think it's a pretty lethargic group outside of Will Dissly. And especially if he's banged up, I'd like to see a Stone Smart step up or a Tucker Fisk. I know it's asking a lot, but you need some more out of these guys, especially if you keep wanting to go out there in these formations.
Well, hey, the good thing is they have a great matchup against the Atlanta Falcons linebackers. They are horrible in coverage, okay? And they got cooked by the Broncos. Against the Broncos, 10 of 11, 134 yards and 2 touchdowns. Landman, 21 receptions on 22 targets, 192 yards and 3 touchdowns allowed this season. Ellis, their other starting linebacker, middle linebacker, 39 receptions allowed on 46 targets, 354 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So that's 6 touchdowns that they've given up in the middle of the football field. And so if we're calling for the tight ends to have a big game, the opportunity is definitely knocking against this Atlanta Falcons linebacker room.
It's such a great point, and I think even adding on to that, right, it feels like one of the biggest untapped parts of the Chargers offense this year is using your running backs in the passing game, right? And that's why I'd love to see Kimani Vidal get some action in that part of the game because it's just hard to remember a lot of impactful Chargers running back receptions this year. It feels like an untapped,
very true.
Source of potential. And I think the one, meaningful thing we've seen from Kimani Vidal was the first time he ever touched the football. He beat a linebacker and he took a, wheel route 36 yards into the end zone and made a great catch on it. That's what I want to see more of because the Chargers really haven't had that involved very much at all with this offense. And it feels like, especially against these linebackers, it's, hey, if you need to get the ball off to running backs and let them do work, there's, some guys that will allow yards in that way. So would love to see the tight end step up. Definitely want to see maybe more, especially with the struggles of the wide receivers, more of the running backs used in the passing game because I think Kimani Vidal can bring a unique aspect there that we haven't really seen this year. And he hasn't done much on the ground to, really have a ton of faith that he's just going to be electric once he comes back. I hope so. But defensively, it's very clear what the Chargers need to do, and that is to get their pass rush swag back, man. They were super hot last week. They got stonewalled this week with the amount of talent and the health of that group, it has to be so much better. So we're getting into all that and the rest of our defensive keys for success and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about Game Time, because Game Time is the only place to get your tickets for any kind of event, not just sports, but whether you're going sports, comedy, theater, whatever concerts you need to go to, all of those things you can find on Game Time. And now Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Also, you can check out the all-in pricing, which is one of my favorite features. I toggle that, and I know the price that I see is the price that I'm going to get. And there's only a couple more games at SoFi, and I've loved seeing the resurgent Chargers home crowd fan base happening at SoFi. And you guys can still get into the primetime matchup on Thursday Night Football on Game Time Picks for only $76. And you get the Game Time guarantee, meaning that if you find the tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. David, let's get into our defensive keys for success here. And I think one thing that stuck with us yesterday with Aaron Freeman was just the fact that the Chargers this week don't have to worry as much about the quarterback escaping sacks and also escaping sacks to create big plays out of the pocket, because this week they're going up against the immobile Kirk Cousins, who's also coming off of a blown Achilles. So if he was always kind of immobile, now he's even more immobile, especially at his age. And that is a huge boost to the Chargers pass rush, because that's been the one thing, almost sacks. We talked about it yesterday. The Chargers have a great chance this week that if they get home, they should be able to bring Kirk Cousins down. And honestly, David, with only Khalil Mack on the injury report and having him be out only for rest purposes, there's way too much talent on this Chargers edge pass rushing unit for them to have a game like they had last week, 1 sack, 0 yards lost on that sack. It has to get better this week.
Yeah, the one great thing about going up against Kirk Cousins in contrast to Lamar Jackson from a pass rushing perspective is you do not have to be as disciplined on the outsides, on the edges, as you will against Lamar Jackson. And then so that's going to open up a lot of great opportunities to just rush the passer like your hair's on fire, like get after it. And the stats are very clear. When opposing teams get pressure on Kirk Cousins, he's completing less than 58% of his passes. Yeah. When he has a clean pocket, it's over 70%. So he is very much a pocket passer. If he has time, he will thread the needle. He's going to put it in those spots. And you're going to have a hard time defending him because he does have a pretty, decently quick release. So get after him, get him on the ground, hit him repeatedly. There will definitely be opportunities to do that. Their left tackle, Matthews, has given up 5 sacks. Their right tackle, McGarry, has given up 4 sacks. And so Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Bud Dupree, Tuli Tuipulotu should all be licking their chops, getting ready to salivate over the opportunity to wreck the statue of Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, and I mean, it would be nice to see Tuli get hot again. Obviously, he was red hot, 7 sacks in 4 games before last week. And last week, the contain obviously slowed down the pass rush. But before that, they had at least 3 sacks in 4 straight games and averaged 5.25 sacks per game, especially, 7 sacks against the Titans, 6 sacks against the Cleveland Browns. There was, this was the hottest pass rush unit, and then it just totally fell off the face of the earth last week. But I think part of the reason is because they were getting run over, and they didn't even really need Lamar Jackson to throw the ball very much last week at all. And that is why bottle up Bijan is where I would go next here. Dangerous on the ground and through the air. And that through the air scares me a lot too, because we have seen some big plays made by running backs against the Chargers, catching balls out of the backfield. And you're going up against a guy that has at least 3 catches in 10 of the 11 games he's had this year, 45 catches in total. And on those catches, averages over 8 yards per catch and has scored 4 receiving touchdowns. So once you get near the end zone, it's not just Drake London that you're scared of. You have to make sure Bijan doesn't get you there. And I think the thing that scares me is just the amount of missed tackles and the poor tackling form, the poor angles that we've seen from this defense, and the reason why the Chargers have given up 110 plus rushing yards in 6 of their last 7. Your pass rush is not going to manifest itself if you're getting beat up on the ground and you just let Bijan Robinson take care of your defense. And he's probably the most elusive running back they've played all year. So that has to come up a huge level this week, because if they don't bottle him up, why would they try to use anyone else or even put Kirk Cousins in a position to get sacked?
Well, yeah, I mean, hey, the Baltimore Ravens showed the blueprint last week, right? It's up to the Chargers to rip that blueprint up and not allow teams to move forward using that same, try to play, that same plan of attack against the Chargers. So they're going to have to bottle him up. They're going to have to bring that physicality, beat him into the ground, and also it's going to stop the effectiveness or limit the effectiveness of the play action if you're able to bottle up the running game, which in this game you absolutely want to make sure that you take away the running game and you force Kirk Cousins to throw the ball a little bit more, because he is very susceptible to either put the ball on the ground, where he's fumbled 11 times this season, or he'll give it up through the air, which he has an interception in 7 of his 11 games that he's played this season. The Chargers need to get back into that column of getting the ball out and really getting the turnovers, because they have gone 3 games without any turnovers created whatsoever. So This is an opportunity to go after the football. Got to bottle up the running game, but you got to go after the football and get those turnovers so you can help out your offense as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Falcons, you heard the Kirk Cousins stat. The Falcons have 15 fumbles so far this year in 11 games. Whew. And the Chargers, the crazy thing about it, the Chargers haven't forced and recovered a fumble. Like, it would be hard to go back and think about it because it's been so long, and I was going through the game logs, as surprised as you will be. Since week 6, that's the last time, right? They did force a couple of fumbles against the Cardinals and couldn't jump on any of them, which has been kind of, what they've been allergic to this whole year. But yeah, they haven't forced a turnover, not only in 3 straight games, but 4 of their last 5 games. I think we're seeing way less batted balls than we saw earlier in the season. And if you look at just those Kirk numbers, that means he's given, 20 turnover possibilities or just straight turnovers in 11 games. Yeah. That means he's only averaging 2+ turnover worthy plays per game. So if the Chargers want to get back to taking the football away, that's where it has to start. And I think the crazy thing is you can see the Chargers trying to grab at the football, even at the expense of tackling at times. Maybe less, ripping for the ball and giving another 5 yards up, maybe more of the peanut punch where we're seeing them, It's also just kind of a loophole in the system right now. You can just wind up and just try to punch the ball out. And it's you can just stalk a player and nobody cares because it's you're just going for the football. Yeah, it ended up, right in his jugular, but
oh, well.
He was trying to strip the ball. That's
holding the ball high.
Legal. Right. I think the last thing, David, I'll touch on here is staying organized on the back end, right? Because there's a lot of moving parts for the Chargers this week, especially with, Cam Hart and Alohi Gilman have not practiced so far this week. 2 big pieces of your secondary. Eli Apple, who has been surprisingly good since coming to the Chargers, and Jesse Minter has, got the most out of him, been placed on IR. You also now have a new safety in the mix, and Marcus May played, which we haven't got to talk about the Marcus May signing yet. Obviously, he just got here, so it's hard to know what to expect. I think the positive thing is he played for a descendant of the Mike McDonald defense, because Anthony Weaver went from Baltimore last year to Seattle to be their defensive coordinator, so he's running a similar system to the system that Jesse Minter runs. Should help with some of the transition. Hard to know what to expect. And I also just think a big bounce back game from Christian Fulton would be great, David, as well, especially after some bad moments last week.
I agree. And to that point, it's trying to eliminate the explosive plays that you've given up the last couple of weeks. Yeah. The big, long 40, 30, 40, 50 plus yard touchdowns. They got to remove that from the defense if they want to get back to their dominant ways of really smothering teams and really just taking away all of their confidence and all of their good feelings. It has to, come back to doing that if they want to have success.
One thing about Christian Fulton is it's easy to forget. He's been the Chargers' best corner so far.
Yeah, he's still been great.
Has come back and he's still been pretty good, and just had a bad moment, a couple bad moments last week. Has to be better though, because he has become so important, and especially when you don't have Cam Hart out there.
Yeah.
You need him to play at the level he was playing at the beginning of the season, and if you can have him playing that way, you have Tarheeb still playing, still near the level that he's been playing at. Jasir Taylor plays better because we've seen him have some down games recently. You're going to need all of that, because the one thing you're going to have to do is take away the immediate options for Kirk so he holds the ball so you can get those sacks. And to get him in those situations, You can't let them be running the ball at 7 yards per clip. It just doesn't work. And the good teams and the good offenses are going to make you pay for it. Those 110 plus rushing yard games that you gave before against bad teams didn't cost you. Last week it cost you. It has to get better. And then if you do get him in those situations, this highly paid, highly talented pass rush has to get home on a quarterback that can't get out of the way. But we do have to get into our bold and our game predictions and talk about if the Chargers can bounce back and get a much needed win, especially with an Arrowhead trip coming up next week. So we're getting into all that and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you about FanDuel because you can get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. The spread has held steady. The Chargers will go into this one as 1.5-point favorites. It looks like the over-under set at 47.5 points, which is all great. You can bet all of that on FanDuel, obviously, but I always love the anytime touchdown scores. The one I like the most this week, Justin Herbert getting into the end zone himself with no J.K. Dobbins in the mix at plus 290, and you can do that by visiting FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, David, well, it's time to get into our bold and our game predictions. And as you guys always do, you came up with some really bold ones, but I think some really great conversations about some players who might or might not play in this game and really who needs to step up and maybe what the Chargers can do to evolve an offense that's had some obvious flaws, even, with the hottest stretch they've been on all season, 23 points or more in 5 straight games. But before we get into that, I just want to thank everyone and tell everyone happy Thanksgiving, because I didn't get to yesterday because we recorded a crossover on Tuesday of this week. But happy Thanksgiving to all the everydayers out there, anybody who has ever given our show a chance. We appreciate you guys as always, and we couldn't be more thankful for the everydayers. If you guys need a second listen, make sure to check out the new Locked On NFL slate with 2 shows a day, one with Tyler the Madman Rowland and the other with Tony Wiggins in the Barbershop on podcasts, wherever you get your podcast from, and on YouTube as well. So, David, we have our bold predictions as we always do, and we love when you guys get involved. And we have this one here from Chris Saiz, which could be a really big, part of what wins or loses the Chargers game, and that is the production of Quentin Johnston after the bad game we saw last week. He says, bold prediction, Quentin Johnston fires back at the haters with 5 catches, 80 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Chris Saiz, that is definitely bold. David, it would be huge for the Chargers, I think, especially in this game, to get him going early, maybe give him a couple of easy targets, because his confidence, as we saw last week, is important, and they're playing him either way.
I agree, and I would really like to see them get the ball in his hands quickly in some of those situations that allow him to use his gifts to have success. Wide receiver screens, some slants, some easy drags, and it's obviously up to Quentin to make those catches, right? He's got to take what happened last game, learn from it, go back into the lab, work his butt off, and make sure that he doesn't have another performance like that again this season. The only way he can do that is by putting the work in and going out and showing everybody that he put that work in by having production on the football field. There's nothing that I would like more than to see Quentin have a game like this. He has only had one game this year where he's had 5 receptions and one game over 80 yards receiving. So that would be a very bold prediction that would come true. I definitely would love to see it.
Yeah, and I think for me, the big thing is, though, I give him a couple easy targets early, and if he drops them, I'm finding an alternative, right? I'm not going to spiral the game away trying to get his confidence back up. I'm going to plan B at that point. I get it. You want to feed him and you want to get him back and the confidence back. I'm giving it to him early. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, but if it doesn't work, I would love to see a backup plan, which is why I think this one here from Brandon Sendo is very important, because he says, bold prediction, DJ Chark will play on Sunday. Keep up the great work, you guys, and happy Thanksgiving. Thank you, Brandon. We appreciate you. And David, somehow this is a bold prediction because he's been inactive 2 games in a row. The game before that, he played 1 snap, and those are the 3 games he's been back since returning from injured reserve. And all he's played this season. We're talking about a dude who's played 1 snap this season after winning a starting wide receiver job coming out of camp. At the same time, this coaching staff is telling you they trust the guys more that they're putting out there on Sundays. And now it does feel like a bold prediction on whether DJ Chark will play. And I can't sit here and confidently tell you that he's playing 100%.
Neither can I, as much as I want to, as obvious as it seems to me. I mean, you see how kind of anemic this offense has been pretty much in spurts all year long, but especially the last couple of weeks, it's magnified because you're going up against offenses that can put points on the board in a hurry. Here with the Atlanta Falcons are facing another quarterback that does have the ability to go out there and score some points if you give him the opportunity to do so. So for me, it's an obvious one. Why not? Why not give DJ Chark an opportunity to go out there and provide a spark for an offense that desperately needs some more semblance of consistency, drive in and drive out? Why not use a commodity that up to this point is unknown to the rest of the NFL because they barely seen him this season?
I mean, my big thing is like the last couple of games, you've been choosing Quentin Johnston and Joshua Palmer to come down with these deep balls that you seem determined to throw, and the Chargers need to get their deep passing attack back. And they're not producing on those targets. Like Quentin Johnston, 2 of his last 13 targets is what he's caught. Yeah, and a lot of those are fades down the sidelines that he's just not even having a chance on because he's not attacking the football and he's not being able to create any separation. Josh Palmer played so many balls last week so poorly that it's hard for me to take either of them seriously as deep threats. And teams are going to keep giving those guys chances because they haven't proven that they can make you pay for them. So if you're going to keep throwing those balls down the field and it's not to Ladd McConkey, let me see some DJ Chark out there. It's just hard to know, hey, who are you going to make inactive? Like Jalen Reagor's played some special teams, but has 2 catches and 20 yards over the past 3 games. Like it's not like that production is irreplaceable. I'd like to see what DJ Chark can do. But let's get to this next one from Ace because he wants to see what Darius Davis can do, and he always will, and he always has. And he says, bold prediction, they will give Darius Davis more than 2 carries. And David, I don't hate this because the Chargers need to find a way to supplement what J.K. Dobbins brought to this backfield and kind of diversify the way they're running the football, and I think that's a great way to do it.
I mean, I'm all on board with giving Darius Davis more touches in general, whether it's rushing yards, rushing carries, or some quick pass receptions to let him go do what he does best, which is make people look really, really slow in the open field because he's really, really, really fast. So that's what makes him such an incredibly dangerous punt returner as well because of his patience, his vision, and that just immediate speed. He definitely could provide some of that. Obviously, you have to weigh the risk versus reward there because he is an all-pro returner. And especially the last several weeks, he seems like he's provided at least one good return every single game. Yeah. So you have to kind of weigh the pros and cons of that situation on how much you want to overextend someone who is such a valuable member of one of the 3 pillars of football.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the bigger thing though too is it's not just that, it's his size, right? He's not a very big guy, so you're always running that risk. But he has only 7 carries in 9 games this year, but on those 7 carries he's averaged over 6 yards per carry. Yep. So I'd love to see a little bit more of that. But Athir is calling in with maybe the boldest prediction maybe of his season. He goes crazy bold every week, and this might even, be the cherry on top.
Daniel, David, this is Athir. First of all, happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, my boys. I love you. My bold prediction for Sunday, Chargers defense will bounce back, 8 sacks, 20 pressure, and they will kick their ass. 31-10. Let's go, baby.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. I mean, I think that we are all hoping the Chargers pass rush can get back to looking like what it looked like. But of course, with Athir, something that hasn't been done has to always get done in a bold prediction. So 8 sacks would be the highest that they've had so far this season, David.
Hey, going up against Kirk Cousins, a guy that cannot really move in the pocket, that really depends on his offensive line to provide him time. This is a game where this is something that is like a potential to happen with the quality of pass rushers that the Chargers have, as long as they're able to bottle up the running game enough to allow the pass rushers to pin their ears back and go to work.
And the Falcons, say what you will, they've only allowed 2.2 sacks per game on average. In the last game, they did allow 4 sacks. And again, Kirk cannot move. So, Dave, let's get into our own bold predictions here. Where are you going this week with it?
Yep. So my bold prediction here is that Justin Herbert is not sacked at all. He accounts for 420 yards of offense. Jesus. I'm going 350 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 70 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown. I think Justin Herbert's going to go absolutely Super Saiyan on Sunday in Atlanta.
That's as bold as it gets right there. I mean, I thought last week would be the week he'd have an opportunity to do it. It didn't materialize. Hopefully, this is the week he gets it done, especially with a lot of questions in the running game. I'm going for my bold prediction this week because I do think it's such a big emphasis in this game to find a way to create a turnover. I'm going Elijah Molden adds on to his team high in interceptions, gets 2 interceptions, and has the Chargers' first defensive score of the season. David, the Chargers need to win this one. This is a low-key kind of huge game for them going down the stretch and a very winnable game for them. Do you think they get it done?
Yeah, so I think with this game, just considering, both teams here, the Chargers are a better football team here. I think they're better on both sides of the ball, in my opinion. I think the Chargers defense gets back to their rare form. I think they're going to force a couple of turnovers. I think Gus Edwards is going to have 80-plus rushing yards, and I think the Chargers are going to get back in the win column in a dominant way. I'm going to go 34-21. I think the Chargers get that bad taste out of their mouth and get a big victory against the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, the Chargers in this game should have the edge defensively. They should have the edge at quarterback. They should have the coaching edge in this one. They should absolutely win this game. I'm a little surprised. It always makes you wonder when you see a line that's this close. Obviously, the Chargers going West Coast to East Coast is never an easy thing to do. But, man, that game on Monday night hasn't drugged me that far down on the Chargers. I think this is a very winnable game, a game that they should win. It's just hard to know which Falcons team is going to show up. But I'm going to assume that their struggles against good defenses will continue to a certain extent. This week, I had the Chargers 27, the Falcons 20. And I think that's a very realistic score of something that could happen in this game. I absolutely think the Chargers could and should win this game. We're talking about an 8-4 football team when we're doing that live show on Sunday. But to make sure you guys don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from, as well as finding the show every day on all of our social media. You can hit us up on Twitter at LockedOnLAC, where a lot of the bold predictions, buy or sells, and fan mail questions come from. Or you can call in like a Thea at 323-524-7924 and get your 30-second Chargers voicemail in. But still a lot to be excited for. I think we can, if the Chargers can win this week, get a little bit of momentum, then potentially knock out the Chiefs after that, I think we'll be right back riding the hype train for this team. They can prove a lot to us. But it starts with this one. This is one you cannot let slip away. A hugely, hugely important game for you to separate yourself from the rest of the playoff hopefuls in the AFC. But make sure you guys are back with us on Sunday for the live show afterwards. Hopefully a big-time Chargers win. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.